As a leader, do you struggle with commitment? Today, we're going to discuss why commitment is the most important decision that you can make. Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I've been in the leadership industry for 15 plus years, mentoring and coaching leaders, developing training programs for leaders, and it ultimately meets our mission of getting others to where they're going, but that starts with you, the leader. Whether you are new to leadership, thinking about getting into leadership, or have been into leadership, this podcast is for you. Today, we're going to talk about why commitment is the most important decision that you can make as a leader. There are many things that we decide to do in our lives that are long-term commitments. Maybe where we choose to live, or what college that we attend. Or maybe it's just who we commit to in marriage, our relationships. Those decisions define who we are as people and eventually will flow into the decisions that we make in our leadership roles. It's important for us as leaders to understand personally how we have dealt with commitment. A lot of times, those personal experiences flow into how we make decisions once we get into a leadership role. So let's talk about a couple of these. One is fear. Fear that things aren't going to work out, whether that's short term or whether that's long term, or maybe it's the fear that you're not going to meet the expectations. A lot of this may stem from where our expectations come from. If we're looking at a senior leadership and their expectations, maybe it's our own personal expectations. A lot of the times we put higher expectations, higher standards on ourselves, and that increases the pressure, that increases the anxiety whenever we need to make a decision. We need to commit to making a decision. So recognize those fears. Are you setting too high of standards or too high of expectations on you, and that's causing you to non-commit to making a decision? Or is it because you just feel as if things aren't going to work out? As leaders, just because you make a bad decision does not mean that you are a bad leader, does not mean that you are a bad person. We are people. We are leaders. You are a leader, and you are going to make mistakes. We learn from those mistakes, and we move on. I would not be here talking to you today if I hadn't made many mistakes. A lot of the mistakes that I've made, those are the lessons. Those are the things that I talk about whenever I journal and I'm coming up with podcast topics. Those are based on the mistakes that I wish I wouldn't have made. But when looking back at them, once you get through that, you're glad you made them because they add to your experiences. And that's how we grow in our leadership journey, is through those experiences, through those failures, how we pick ourselves up from those failures, and how we move forward in that. So fear is that first one, that we're non-committal. The second one may be based on our history or maybe even a past trauma that we have experienced, or we did commit to a situation and it went very wrong. And that's always in the back of our mind whenever we go to make a decision is, remember that time, John? It's that imposter syndrome that creeps in, right? That those thoughts that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to make this decision. Maybe I experienced some failures in my past and I haven't put those to rest. I haven't resolved those failures. That's an important part. As we fail, when we make mistakes, it's important to make sure that we look back, resolve that situation, so that way we can move forward. And then we're surrounded. The third one is the media, everything that we ingest, whether that's social media, whether that's TV, maybe it's the people that we talk to. And that presents doubt. Any little bit of doubt, maybe it's a fear of not making or not committing to a decision because of the economy. Or maybe it's a situation to where you have to lead a change or you have to implement a change and your senior leader is not committed to that decision. So what does that do for you? You're the frontline leader, you're the frontline manager in that situation. You need to convey that message to your team. And if your senior leaders aren't committed to that change, how can you get on board? So who you surround yourself with, who you're listening to, what you're watching can all impact our commitment to make decisions. So let's talk about some ways that I have got over those three things. One, if you do not remove all variables from the situation, you're not committed to that decision. Think about that for a little bit. Maybe you're deciding to move the organization or reorg an organization, and you still got the what ifs back there. Well, what if we keep it the same? Well, what if we just move one person? You haven't committed to the decision to reorg the organization, or you haven't committed to a decision maybe to move or go in a different direction with your media strategy or your strategic plan, whatever that may be for your business. If you are what ifing yourself, there are other variables out there. Remove them so that way you can move forward and commit to making a decision. Another thing, I do this a lot. I do this when I'm purchasing things, or I'm looking, when I was putting together this room, I was looking for cameras and I was looking for lights and microphones. I can't tell you that I would research, I'd settle on something, I would decide that I was going to get this microphone, and guess what? I'd go out and do more research after I had committed to myself mentally, and I'd put it in my cart. I'd go back out and I'd second guess myself. Do any of you do that? So what I've learned from those experiences, once I commit to buying this microphone, I don't look back. I don't go back and do more research. I hit the buy button, buy now, or whatever that looks like for your particular case, and I'm moving on. That has helped me tremendously when it comes to other decisions that I have to make, is commit to making a decision and don't look back. It goes back to maybe past history. You made a bad decision in the past. Now you have to make a similar decision, and you're non-committal because of those past experiences. Acknowledge that. It's okay to acknowledge that you made a bad decision, but now you have to move forward. So use that experience to make the next decision, and hopefully that decision will be better than the last. So the very last thing that impacts our non-committal to making decisions is who we surround ourselves with and who we listen to and who we take advice from. I am very careful about who I listen to and who I take advice from. I tend to surround myself with positive people, with people who bring solutions to the table and not problems, and those who are excelling in areas that I want to excel in. That's who I'm going to take advice from. I'm not going to take advice from somebody who is 3 or 4 maybe steps behind, or maybe where I used to be and I've grown past them. And that's not a negative thing, but I'm very careful in who I take advice from, because that impacts, if we're asking for advice on a decision that we're thinking about, our committal to that decision. How we commit to a decision, whether we think it matters or not, is the advice that we ask for or that we are given when it comes to that decision. So make sure as a leader that you are surrounding yourself with people who are giving you good advice. So last tidbit that I want to leave you all with is, when a decision is made, right, wrong, or indifferent, you as a leader be proud that you committed to making that decision and then move forward. If it was a great decision and you committed to it, give yourself a pat on the back. Acknowledge your team. Always acknowledge your team. Remember, as leaders, when things go well, we acknowledge the team. When things go bad, we take the blame. That's going to go a long way with building trust with your team. And hopefully the things that we talked about today will help you commit next time you need to make a decision. Go be great. We'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us get others to where they're going.